Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, in whichever part of the world you are. This is Vaibhav Patkar. I'll be your host for the next 1 hour or so. And I also will be your trainer for CDPSE training, which we are starting in about 3 weeks' time. I'll try to explain the basic uh, flow of the presentation or of the session today. Uh, I'll be covering basic privacy aspects and something about how why there is a requirement for privacy, and then subsequently the need of the privacy trained people and how CDPSE can help you, and something about the CDPSE exam. I'll be talking about how you can do it, what is the exam type, what are the domains cover, any high level, and exam type, exam cost, how do you study, and how InfosecTrain can help you in that study. So these are most of the points we are going to talk. Uh, I prefer this training or this session to be an interactive one. So in case if you have a question, you may. So if you have any questions, either you can put it on chat or you may ask the questions, and I can answer that, or maybe we can at the end of the session we can have a collective question also. So whichever is comfortable, I am okay with it. So maybe we can start if you are all okay with it. I call this a curtain raiser, so it will give you some understanding about the course and the certification as such. Uh, InfosecTrain, this is about the company, started in about 5 years back, and we conduct a lot of training programs, professional training programs. Professionals from 20 countries, 30,000 people have been trained by us. Various courses have been offered in various uh, organizations. So these are some of our clients where our students are being part of. Tata's, NITs, GAP, SAMDocs, Indian, international, all companies are there. Learning partners for ISACA, ISA Square, sorry, EC Council, ITpreneurs, and CompTIA, along with Microsoft and other one. Uh, we have a good uh, bunch of certified trainers with us. We have flexible modes. We can have a classroom, weekends, weekdays kind of batches, and we can have customized for corporates as well. This is my name and some of the alphabets I have in the information security world. I have about 30 years of experience in infosec and information technology, and I conduct these kind of sessions on a regular basis. So I think the agenda I already spoke about. We'll talk about privacy, we'll talk about the certification structure and something related to syllabus, and then we'll have the strategy of how you're going to address it. See, there is a little difference in confidential and personal. Confidential information may not be personal. It could be related to financials or related to an organization, and which will be accessed by some authorized people. So, don't try to correlate uh, confidential with personal. So, keep yes, Jitesh is right. Keep private information available based on consent and authorized users. Gives power to choose our thoughts and our feelings. And who I think George has given a very good answer. Privacy gives us power to choose our thoughts and feelings and whom we share with. It is not specifically to thoughts, but it is about identifying you as a person. So I will talk about what is private information or PII information. Uh, Protecting data which should not be revealed to unknown or irrelevant subjects or persons uh, may be right. Yes, we'll see that. But I think overall, I get it. I think let's stop the responses. But I think I get the responses from you, and I think more or less you are right. Let's look at the specific one. So Uh, privacy is I'm just going to read this out so that it will make, this is a kind of a dictionary definitions. An individual's right to freedom from intrusion and prying eyes or the right of person to be left alone. And information privacy is right to have some control over how your personal information is collected and used. So privacy is something, a right of use which your information which can identify you as you should be kept with you, or you can disclose it to the person whom you give a consent with. And information privacy is the right to have some control on how your information will be used and collected. So probably when you open a bank account, you have to give your personal information to the bank, based on which they will authenticate you. They will check the records, and then they can open an account with you. Or if you want to go for taking a loan or a mortgage, again they will check whether you are capable of repaying the loans or not. So they will do some kind of a background check. Same thing happens when you join a company. You give a consent to that company that you will be subjected to a background check, and there'll be some amount of your personal information will be collected from you, and it will be used for checking whether your accidents or your background is correct or not. So but the thing is that you are giving consent, or you are allowing them to use the information to check on you. So since you are given consent, so that's very uh, it's okay for them to use it. But the challenge comes here, where the company uses the information with, for some purposes for which you have not given consent. And there is a privacy consent picture, because you are given consent for using the information in a particular manner or particular activity, but it is getting used, and that is a misuse of it, and you should be informed about it, because in case that information gets lost or being misused, then who's going to be responsible? The company is going to be responsible, but how you really find it out? It's a little difficult to find out, but at least these kind of nuances we can able to understand in our day-to-day aspects, and uh, this course will probably help you in identifying and what actions can be taken. Privacy becoming a everyday issue nowadays. So you will hear it at data breaches. Number of data breaches are happening. Technology misuse, because of some people are sharing the information and that gets misused. You must have seen some of the places where you people try to put some information on social networking, and some smart guys actually use that information, correlate them, and try to do kind of an identity theft attacks on you guys. So that's something which you be very care of. Social networking is using this is all same. Uh, Targeted advertising misuse based on your search marketing. I think Jitesh, you were saying we are right. So if you let's go, say that you need to buy some product, and you search some Amazon or Flipkart sites, and subsequently you will notice that you're getting ads based on that search you made in Amazon. So you're getting ads related to that particular product. So let's say you want to buy a vacuum cleaner, and you search on Amazon for a vacuum cleaner. So how does that really happen? Because you have not indicated to anybody that you're purchasing. You just went to a site, and at that site you just looked at option. You may not have any thought about purchasing it, but still you're getting those specific ads. So how does that really happen? Anyone? Search history is actually too local, but how does the other side knows about your search history? Cookies. I think Kondal and Vikas are absolutely right. Cookies are the something which are collecting this information. Cookies are some specific software programs which, when you access any site, it gets downloaded on your system, and it has got certain mechanism, or certain maybe, as what earlier said, AI or machine language kinds of algorithm, or coding put in, so that they will start yeah, Google search without your consent. Companies get your personal your requirements and do marketing. Absolutely, absolutely. That is targeted advice. So how does it really works? That cookies which you get downloaded, which gets downloaded when you access those sites, they relaying this kind of information to either the site from where you are with your accessed it, or there could be some third parties where this information gets relayed, and they come to know about it, and then start showing you those specific advertisements. So that is again a privacy issue. So getting this kind of ads on your browser is a privacy issue, because you have not given your consent to them to get those information, that third side, but they're still trying to bombard you with this advice. So this is a privacy issue, and this you need to be a little particular about in addressing it. So a CDPSE can able to tell you how it really works, and what can be done to protect you from getting this kind of ad. Uh, the simplest activity one can think about is probably you can use some kind of ad blocker programs, but there is a challenge where yeah, website visitors, and I think Anand is pretty right on that. Uh, so there are certain ways and means we can block that access, but there is a fallout where you may not be able to access all the sites, because some of the sites really work on this uh, ads or these cookies only. So if you want to access them, you need to allow these cookies to be installed in your system, and only then they can use it. You can use the site. So yeah, sometimes it's a it's a fallout whether you want to access it or you don't access it, depending on you want to share your personal information or share your information what is stored in a browser to them. You need to take a call. Okay. Uh, can somebody tell me what do you consider as a PII or personally identified information? What it could comprise of? Name, date of birth, yes. Information you can, yeah, but I just want some specific. Social security numbers, correct? Or Aadhaar number, that's yes. Date of birth, correct? Anything that, yeah, I just want those some specific things because I'm going to show you it in my next slide. So I just want to know what IP address is, yes. Address, bank account number, PAN number, yes. Phone number, yes. Date of birth, PAN, correct? Anything else? How about your biometrics or a fingerprint? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Krishna, as I said, and he put it exactly right. Yes, attributes that show your password. So let me. I think that's good enough. I'll just show you my next slide so that you will get more clarity. So it's a full name, your email address, national identification number. It could be your SSN, it could be your Aadhaar number, your IP address, in your driving license, face fingerprints, biometrics, credit card numbers, telephone, school, college, grade, criminal records. Also, is your personal information. Uh, Even your handwriting. The handwriting also can be considered as your PII. So just imagine if this kind of information goes out in the market. There's always a chance of getting it misused, and there will be a, identity theft kind issue kind of. So you need to be careful on where and how you share your information, because sometimes it so happens that you yourself have shared this information to somebody unknowingly, and that actually gets targeted back on you in some way or other. So you need to be very careful. Now I think you must be uh, lately some of the attacks or some of the phishing attacks or SMSing attacks are recently happening related to electricity bill. So how that really works, you get a link, you get a message saying that your electricity will be disconnected at so and so time unless you pay it, and you call up the number. That person will try to win your confidence and then try to ask you to download some software on your system. With that downloading, all your personal information related to name, address, bank details, the bank OTPs and passwords will be captured by them, and that's how they will empty your account and you'll lose number of, I mean, amount, large amount of money. So you need to be very careful. One of the biggest challenge here is lack of awareness. People easily give this information without considering the security implications or privacy implications. So has to be very clearly uh, understood why you want to do this, why it is necessary to protect the PII. You could lose your personal data, you could lose your identity, you could lose your reputation also. Financial data comes as a byproduct of it when you lose this kind of thing, and also loss of confidential data. Now, confidential data here I'm talking about from company point of view. When let's say a bank collects a lot of data from its customer for loans purposes or account opening purposes and so on and so forth. And if such data gets lost, now that's a PII also, that's a confidential from bank point of view. If it is not properly stored with the specific controls. Now, what those controls are, what those storing mechanisms are, the CDPSE course will talk more about that. But at the simplest form, the simple production mechanism would be encryption. If you encrypt the data properly, I don't think anybody can decrypt it and find it out. Uh, these are the things which, I mean, what would happen in case you don't protect your PII. Any questions or anything you need to, you need some clarification? Uh, Thiru is asking whether business email address with first and last name is considered PII. Uh, Usually, business email may not come under PII because that's a company information. That's not, though it's identified you as you, but according to me, mostly it will be termed under confidential information, and not necessarily a personal information. Maybe your personal Gmail or a Hotmail, Yahoo kind of an ID can be considered as a PII, but not necessarily because this will get changed if you move to another company. So if you're joining company X, you may have a dot b or a dot b at the rate abc.com, and if you change your company, you will have a dot b at the rate xyz.com. uh, that may not be considered as a PI information, but your a dot b at gmail.com, I think it will stay with you for wherever you go, unless you want to change to a dot b to say ab dot bc or something like that, and you don't. What about medical history? Medical history is also PII, but actually in medical history, that's PHI, correct? Personally identify personal healthcare information. So uh, there is a separate control under HIPAA or high trust. One has to be protected. Yes, but medical history is this also needs to get protected. Here, specifically under PI, it doesn't come. It under medical history comes under PHI. Uh, a couple, there is a question. A certificate will be issued after attending this course, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get. Sarah, to answer your question, you will get a certificate after attending. And I think if you want to claim your CPE hours, I think you can get those CPE hours using. Yeah, I think we talk about that, but I think a little go in detail. So if you don't have a control, or if your overall design does not permit, let's say, any storage of encryption is not part of your design, I think your data can get lost. A simple example I can just share with you here. uh, we take backups, and the backups are usually stored offsite. Now, what happens if the backup tape in transit get lost and somebody gets a tape? Don't you think it's easier to restore the data on his system and get the whole stuff with him? It is possible, right? But it is, if you encrypt the tape while copying, yeah, tokenization can be one of the control. If you do encryption of the tape while it is recording, even if somebody gets that tape, it will be difficult for anyone to retrieve out, because breaking the encryption will be a big task and not possible with the current encryption mechanism what we follow. So it will be very much difficult. So same case goes with your laptops. In case you're, I think most of the company for I'm talking about corporates. Most of the corporate laptops are having some kind of an encryption in place. You may use the operating system's built-in encryption, or you may use a third-party encryption stuff. So whenever you log into your laptop, or it will ask you for a password. Depending on which model you are using, it can ask you a separate password, or you can integrate that with your operating system, whichever way you look at it. The advantage is, if the laptop gets stolen, or somebody just you forget at some place, uh, the next person who's going to use that laptop may not find it easier, because breaking that encryption is going to take time. So it is as good as kind of a I would say a very heavy paperweight, because that nothing can be done unless you take out or cannibalize that motherboard. Nothing can be done. So that's an advantage here. Uh, Data breaches can happen. Using data breaches, your data can get lost. Obviously, with that, the reputation also gets lost, and financial loss is also possible when you have it. Malware, ransomware, I think we spoke just about that little earlier, but those can also happen, and which can lead to data losses. And once these kind of thing happens, and if it has been proven that you are not taken the due control, or proper things are not being in place, or proper controls are not in place, you may be subjected to regulatory fine, penalties. I believe GDPR, the European standard, uh, 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 which allows up to 4% of your annual turnover on the overall company as a fine, if it finds out that you haven't implemented controls properly for protecting privacy information. Uh, CDPSE is not for entry level positions, because it requires at least 3 years of experience to get the certification. I'll come to that little later, if you can allow me to explain, because I'll explain you all the basic requirements from certification point of view, how to give that, how when you can be considered as a CDPSE. So, Sarah, if you can wait for a few minutes, I think you will get answer to that question. Okay. To in an organization to control or to protect this information, so you require somebody who knows technology, who understands the privacy aspects and all, and he can then build up a solution. Of course, he is not going to build alone because he's not necessarily be a systems guy, but he can help systems development team to build a solution in such a way that privacy aspects can be considered from beginning. This is known as privacy by design, where at the entry level itself to the in the data life cycle from start of the using the data or creating data to the destruction point. Uh, you include privacy, then you are fairly confident that the privacy aspects are being addressed and you can have a peaceful sleep in the night. Data classification plays a very important role in identifying which data is PIR or not, and this will help you where the data is being used, what data is being used, how the data is being used, and how that is used, processed, shared, stored, destroyed in an organization. So this is kind of thing is required, and if you really want to follow all the regulatory norms, business requirements, and also having a technical and the business related or privacy related aspects, knowledgeable person is always helps, and CDPSE helps you doing that. How that helps? I'll just CDP is helps you in building confidence to know about how this uh, uh, how about technology and privacy related aspects are considered. It expands your knowledge. If you are a technical person, it helps you understand the privacy concept. If probably you're a legal guy, it helps you about your the knowledge and privacy related activities, and you can able to help in the better designing of the system, the better design of a solution or a product. Your marketability, it's a, end of the day, it's a ISACA certification. So your marketability increases because certificate like CDPSE are not simple to achieve. You require a lot of understanding about the topic, and unless and until you know it, you can demonstrate that you have it, because the exams are not going to be simple. It's going to be really tough. So, that's one way to prove that. International credibility, you go to any corner of the world, and these certifications are recognizable, so your career aspects or chances of employment are very bright when you have this kind of a certification. So this really helps you build a career, and you can progress in your career as well. Now, how that is different from CIPM or CIPP? CIPM or CIPP are certification from IAPP, which is specific to privacy organization. ISACA per se was mostly focused on security and information assurance arena. Now they have moved to privacy with this certification. Uh, CIPP more or less talks about uh, specific, I mean, specific regions privacy is law. So it helps you understand the specific regions privacy law and how you can address it. It doesn't focus more on technical aspects. It is just focus on the regular. So you have four flavors in CIPP. One is for CIPP US. It will talk about US related privacy laws. Another is CIPP EU, which talks about the European GDPR law. The third one is CIPP-CA, which is talks about the Canadian PIPDA laws, and the fourth is CIPP-A, which is focusing on Asia, more or less Singapore, Hong Kong, and Indian privacy law. So it focuses on. So if you want to know, I mean, it would be ideal for a legal person to go for a CIPP, and depending on which flavor or which country or which region he is in, that makes really helpful for him. But as I said, it doesn't talk too much about technology aspect. As far as CIPM is concerned, so it's one step little ahead of CIPP, and it's mostly focuses on it's a kind of a project management software certification kind of thing, which focuses on privacy, where one can handle privacy related projects. And in that case, that will be really helpful. But CDPSE talks about not necessarily about the laws or legal privacy laws across the world, but it has got a data classification to understand the what can happen to data at which cycle. That's like number two. And number three, the most important aspect is what kind of a controls you can implement so that privacy by design is achieved from beginning itself. I hope, Shiv, that answers your question. So, All these certifications have got their own specific focus. If you want to do, if you want to club, let's say, privacy and security and technology together, maybe CDPSE is the right one for you. If you want to focus only for specific regions, privacy laws, I think CIPP would be ideal for you. CIPM will be a manager of a CIPP, so he can do a privacy management projects. So that will really help for a CIPM certification. Now you'll ask me what's the difference between the two. I mean, they are end of the day those alphabets. Yeah, they are alphabets. CIPP you can add behind your name, which is not a problem. But the major difference between the two is as soon as you pass the CIPP exam, you will get a certificate by IIPP. Whereas when you pass a CDPSE exam, and I'm going to talk a little detail about that, uh, you don't get CDPSE certification just like that. You need to prove to ISACA that you really have the experience, and it could be shown by sending your supervisors authorized or affiliated or consent that he has got, you have got this kind of an experience respecting what you mentioned, and once that has been approved by ISACA, then you get certificate. So a certificate and certification are two different things. CIPP, CIPM, you will get certificate once you pass, but in CDPSE you need to pass and then show to the ISACA that you have relevant experience endorsed by your supervisor. What is that? I'll just talk in a few slides. We will go there. Education so far. Who should go for CDPSE? You are a consultant, you are an analyst, domain architects, engineers, project managers, privacy, legal advisors, IT guys or InfosecTrain guys who wants to make career in privacy or security. I think they can go for it. But yeah, there are some things I just want to highlight. I'll talk to you once we go to that place. So I think there was one question, where is it an entry level certification? I would certainly not think so. It is not entry level certification because you need to have some amount of experience see, privacy is not simple to understand unless until you have some background of security or technology, or even from for that legal. So if you have this basic understanding, then you can venture out in security, venture out in privacy, I would say. So have some experience, and then jump into this domain. If you are, let's say, just graduated and you want to make a career, I don't think jumping to privacy straight will be a right way, because there are a lot of stuff you need to understand. It takes some time. So maybe you can spend some time to get some experience, 2 3 years of experience, and then go for CDPSE. Then I think it may make sense, rather than doing it in a blank slate when you come out of your graduate school. Let's talk about specific to the exam. What are those uh, exam pattern and questions? So you'll get 120 questions. It's a MCQ based, so all multiple choice question. But mind you, they are not simple. Probably you must have seen if you're somebody of some people know about the analytical ability or mathematical ability kind of questions. They are not similar. ISACA puts a lots of logic, and they put a lots of confusion or confused sentence forming in their questions. So I always feel ISACA exams are a test of English grammar, because what is being asked, if you are not able to understand correctly, it will be difficult to respond to that question, even if the answer is actually, you can look at the answer directly, but you can't understand, because the way ISACA structures its sentences for questions, it is sometimes becomes much complicated to understand. I'm not trying to make you put some kind of a fear in you. This is how ISACA works for all these exams. So the total time for taking the exam is about 210 minutes. That's about 3.5 hours. It's a computer-based test. You can do it at your own home's convenience, but it's remote proctored, or you can go to an authorized training centers. You can check at ISACA site to find out how many centers you have, uh, based on which location you are staying. And passing score is a 450. Now this 450 is not 450 that when you get 120 questions, you just respond to certain number of questions. No, ISACA scoring pattern is a little different. It has a scaled score fundamentals. So the, the scale ranges between 200 to 800. and anyone which has got 450 plus is considered as passing. There is no highest marks or lowest marks kind of a thing. As long as you uh, go over 450, you are passed. So as I said, how to get the certification? The two-stage process. First stage is to pass the exam, and second is to demonstrate. Yeah, cost will come to that, Debashis. The next slide, there are a couple of slides that you will get the cost as well. Uh, Successful passing of CDPSE, you demonstrate requisite experience of CDPSE job areas or the domains. What are these job areas? I'm going to explain in the next slide. Adherence to code of professional ethics. ISACA has a very specific code of professional ethics which one has to follow. You have to give them in writing your consent to that. In case that ethics are not followed, it is possible that your certificate may be revoked. So please be very careful when you have these certifications. Adherence to continuing professional education program. It is nothing but see, unlike your educational qualification, these are professional certifications. So whenever you get a degree in your college, that stays with you till end of your career. But in professional things, they have some limited lifespans. So usually all these certifications you will find they will have at least a 3 year lifespan, ISACA specifically. So what happens after 3 years? So you need to show to ISACA that you are actually continuing your professional journey. So that journey will be showing them you are attended some conferences, you attended some seminars, you are undergone some additional training related to that field, and you have to provide those records to ISACA, or you can do this training. So I'm conducting this training today or even after the CDPSE. So I can show to ISACA that I have conducted this training, which is helpful for the community. Then I will get certain grade points, and that I can show to ISACA, and then they accept it. Then my certification then continues for next 3 years. But every year I need to show a record to ISACA that what I have done in that year, and that goes on for number of years. So just to say that I have earned my CISA 20 years back. So last 20 years, I'm not given the exam again, but I'm maintaining my certification by showing that every year I have done this course or I have done this training or I have read this manual or I have undergone certain specific requirements which are fulfilling for from the CPE requirements point of view. So that's a kind of an advantage you have. So you did not appear for exam again and again. Okay. Uh, so for certifications, you need to show that you have 3 or more years of professional experience in either privacy governance, architecture, or data cycle. These are nothing but three job practice areas or three domains of CDPSE. What are the contents of these specific domains? I'll come to the next slide. And there are no waivers or substitution. So if you know if someone from you is a CISA or CSAM certified or even CSP, there are certain waivers given if you have if you are a graduate or if you are a covered or you have completed CISA or system, you get some 1 year or 2 years of waivers. Those waivers are not possible in CDP system. You need to clearly show that you have 3 or more years experience. Can somebody go on mute, please? Who is that? Animesh or uh, no waivers or substitution for any of them. So you need to have at least 3 years of experience to get the certification. Now that maybe poses a question that I may not have experience today. What happens? So the score is valid. So if you pass the exam, the score is valid for 5 years. So in that 5 years, you can show that. Privacy architecture, I think if you are a technology background, most of that privacy architecture comes from technology. So if you have a technology experience, I think that can be covered under privacy architecture. Uh, CDPC has got three practice areas or three domains: governance, architecture, and data cycle. The distribution of questions have been mentioned here: 34%, 36%, and 30%. Uh, so privacy governance will probably have around 42 questions. Privacy architecture will have about 45 questions, and data cycle will probably have 36 questions. So that's a kind of a distribution. I would request when you're actually appearing for exam, do not try and check with where they check the question is from which domain, because sometimes it is possible that the wordings of these questions it's such that you might find it is from the domain one also or domain two also. So do not your objective in the exam is to address the question and not to find which job practice area they are from. Okay. Now let's come to the specifics under each and every domain or job practice area. So privacy governance has got three sections: governance, management, and risk management. So in governance, it will talk about personal data information. It talks about privacy laws. It talks about legal process, consent, legitimacy. Though they look same, but there, mind you, there are different understanding, different meaning of this. Then what is data subject rights? That's part of governance. Then you have management. Roles and responsibilities are pretty important aspect from, and there are lots of questions you get on roles and responsibilities. How do you create a training awareness? That is also important aspect from that. Privacy incident management, again PIM. So how do we, so is a security incident is the same as privacy incident? That's something which will get clarity in this privacy incident management. So differentiation between a security incident and so if I put it this way, a security incident may not be a privacy incident, but a privacy incident would always be a security incident. So that's how we will explain on that during the session. And the last is risk management. When we talk about PIA, privacy impact assessment, the DPI, the data protection impact assessment, threats and attacks and vulnerabilities or harms which are related to privacy. So those are we are going to audit experience. If it is specific to privacy audits, I think that can be get considered. But if it is not privacy, then I don't think that will be considered as a experience. So this is domain one or privacy governance for job practice areas. Domain two talks about architecture. Here we talk about technology stacks. We talk about data center, cloud data centers, managed co-location data center, cloud. What are the cloud kind of a service? Endpoints related controls, remote access control, hardening. Because if you do a proper hardening, I think you can have a decent protection in your environment. So that's what we talk about. Uh, Secure development lifecycle, we're going to talk about privacy by design, application and software hardening. Earlier we talked about system hardening, then we're going to talk about application and software hardening. So a lot of technologies we're going to talk about it. I'm going to have some explanations and examples when we actually go through the session. What are APIs and what services or web services or cookies and tracking mechanisms is going to be talking about. Then you have technical controls, key management, encryption, focusing on what are the specific controls, how you're going to use them. De-identification or tokenization is a specific control. So how we are going to use that in an architecture environment. So that's what we're going to talk about. How we're going to monitor or log uh, the information and what are the privacy aspects of logging. We're going to talk in the privacy monitoring and logging section, and then finally comes to IAM, uh, identity and access management. Then last is the data cycle or data life cycle. So we're going to talk about inventory classification, accuracy, data flow, how data flow really works, aggregation when it comes to analytics, AI. I think somebody was talking about AI and ML earlier. So that's we're going to talk about what is big data, how do you do data minimalization so that your privacy by design principle gets followed. So if you see, simple logic here is do not store the data, do not as in format. So you try to do a masking, do some kind of a tokenization. So these are some of the privacy techniques we need to implement from the beginning itself, so that in case that data gets leaked out, then you cannot refer back to any living or dead person. So that's the advantage of doing this data minimalization or privacy by design kind of thing. So data storage, warehousing, this is all the data lifecycle stages we are going to discuss and talk about it. So I hope, Animesh, your questions are answered related to what we are going to cover in that domains. I think that's all we are going to cover, nothing else beyond this. And obviously we will talk about the practical expenses one has. Fine. Let's move to the next question. Somebody was asking about the costing of the exam. So if you're a ISACA member, the exam cost will be $575. If you're a non-member, it will cost you 760. It is always advantageous to have a ISACA membership because if you see the costing, 135 for membership, annual membership, and if you add up to the member cost exam and local chapter fees. Now, depending on whichever region you are, you will always have a local chapter associated close by, and if you want, you can be part of that chapter. And uh, see, there is no Indian cost for this training because you need to pay using your credit card to ISACA directly. Uh, Training cost, Kapil, you can talk about that. Uh, Kapil is from our admin team, and he can sales team. He can give the exact cost. But this costing which I mentioned here, you have to pay to ISACA directly, or the training cost you can. Kapil has already put in an email address. He can you can contact there for the exact costing. Uh, After you pass the exams, uh, if you want to go for your certification, you have to pay a $50 fee for that, and for continuing maintenance of that certification, you need to pay $45 per annum. So exam cost is one-time fee, membership fees are annual, uh, certification fee, the application fee is one time, but the maintenance fee is annual. So that's how the differentiation of prices. First and foremost, before you want to give, you need to make your mind whether you want to really go for the exam. Once you make up your mind, only then plan for it. Otherwise, you say, "Oh no, I will do it tomorrow. I will get it." It will not work. And my advice would be, if you really want to go with the certification, and this is true with not necessarily CDPSE or any such certification, you have to always work backwards. Now, how that works is, in your college days, when your exams are when your final exams are going to be due. Let's say they are in March, so you know that your typical preparation will start maybe a month in advance, and then you slog it out. You make the midnight oil burn and so on and so forth, and then So I suggest, uh, don't do exactly the same, because in college days you have nothing else but to do study. But today you are professionals, you are working also, and you, you need to progress in your career. So think about that first, whether you can able to spare time for study, because this is not going to be a simple activity. When you want to study for certification exams, you need to really put your whole stuff in that. Only then you will able to make something about it. So you have to be very careful, very thoughtful about giving the exam. So once you decide that you need to give the exam, then you register and work backwards. See some manual, I mean CDPSE review manual, which is available from ISACA site. You can get it there, and then you can start reading it, understand it. Maybe discuss this with your peers or friends or some of the SMEs if you know, because it's not going to be a self-study kind of an approach. Because if you do that, unless until you know everything, self-study may not be advisable. Uh, you may take a course like we are now conducting in 3 weeks' time. You need to study pretty hard, do a logical study, then in very fresh mind appear for the exam, and then you can pass the exam and obviously go for certification. So I would say this is a very high-level strategy of the for preparation and passing. Yes, it's difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. You need to put a lot of energy, a lot of thought process. You need to read a lot of stuff. What are some of the sample materials you require to study for the exam? I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So the CRM, which is coming from ISACA, believe you need to be buying that. It's a main book which you need to follow to the T. You can look at NIST privacy framework from NIST, because there are some references from in the exam which will come from this privacy framework. And privacy principles is something. There are 14 privacy principles. I think you need to be aware of, and GDPR documentation. I think that also a good starting point to understand what are the legal point of view or law says about from privacy point of view. Now, there's a question says, how different from cybersecurity domain in terms of pay scale? It's a little difficult question, because privacy per se does not come under cybersecurity. If you know, in typical companies, chief privacy officer and chief security information security officer, CISO and CPO, they don't report to each other. They report to probably a chief risk officer. So it is little difficult, and CPO kind of a terminologies or privacy specific openings are just coming up, and there are not many people available. So you can probably demand a good. I mean, you can ask for a raise, or you can ask for more money in case you have a privacy kind of a certificate. So, I mean, but at least it will be 10 to 20% higher than normal security guys. That's what I feel, but I may be wrong here. But this is how the market works. Okay. Uh, we're going to start. I think that's all from my session. Any question, please feel free to ask now. Then otherwise, then I will talk about exam, the course point of view.